This is Automotive Electronics Test 11, and we're talking about multiplexing and stuff. Incidentally, I want to show you this. This is, there's a bunch of different varieties of this that are made by a bunch of different people, but this is a breakout box for the OBD2 connector. And so if you've got an issue with if you think you got network problems, you can plug this into your OBD2 connector and you can plug your scan tool into here. And then you've got all these pins, these test pins. And so you can take and measure, you know, you can see if you got power on pin 16, ground on 4 and 5, and your other pins that do your network protocols, you can actually connect your scope to them and see what that pattern looks like. Because your network is only going to be talking to, you know, through here when the scan tool is plugged in and it's working. So anyway, just to show you that, that's part of your network troubleshooting thing. They've also got network, on some of your networks, like on the GMC out there, they got all the networks running together through a little bus bar that looks like a comb, a little bitty thing. And if your network's down, what you do is you unplug that little comb and you can check each network right there in that little, you know, because all the networks come together into that one bus, you know, and they're all talking. This stuff is pretty smart because it sorts out the signal.
Like on the Ford Ranger, you have a breakout box for that too.
Which one?
That Ford Ranger.
Yeah, that's a breakout box for the actually entire engine controller. A breakout box is basically just putting these pins out here where you can test them real easy. And if you're, you know, if you're doing a lot of network troubleshooting, you know, this kind of thing right here is really handy to have. Now I have actually back probed the little connector under the dash when I was trying to see if I had network communication and all that. Multiplexing networks allow several devices to share signals on a common conductor, and that's true. That's what multiplexing is all about. It reduces the amount of wire. The ISO-K bus protocol allows for bidirectional communication on a single wire. It does. You can actually talk back and forth on that. Bidirectional communication would mean kind of like when you're, yeah, the connection, the signal can go both ways. It's not just one processor reading down here. This one here can read. These boxes can talk to each other. Number 3, the controller area network system can support baud rates of up to 5 megabits per second. MB per second is not megabytes per second, it's megabits per second. And it can, basically. There are different speeds of CAN networks, though, so they don't all communicate at 5 megabits per second. Bluetooth technology allows several modules from different manufacturers to be connected using a standard high-definition transmission. That is actually supposed to be false according to the answer key, but I could build a case for that being true. So if you put true, I'm going to say that's okay. I mean, come on, give me a break here. Modules, what kind of modules are they talking about? See, they're not really being clear on that question. Now in the book you may have some more information about that.
That's like Bluetooth. Bluetooth, you can Bluetooth to your radio in your car, play music through Bluetooth.
Yep. Well, I've got in my pickup truck and in my Jeep, as soon as I start the vehicle, my phone connects to it via Bluetooth, and I can play music off my phone. I can answer the phone through the radio, and there's all kind of cool stuff you can do. That's kind of like Microsoft Sync and other stuff, you know, you got going. Yeah, but the Microsoft is good. It is our friend. All right, number 5, the local interconnect network, LIN, L-I-N. Bus is a part of a UART single master multiple slave low speed network. Believe it or not, that's true. That was some of the earliest networks that they used on cars. The old GM cars used UART. You might notice that on some of your description and operation stuff on your
I've seen that one time, that UART.
UART, yeah. And they've also the class 2 signal line, you know, as you know, some of the stuff like on GM, there's a bunch of different types of networks that you got here. Each computer connected to the data bus is called a mole. That's not right. Why didn't he put a question there like that? All right. The media-oriented system transport, MOST is why they acronym that. Cooperation data bus system uses fiber optics to transmit data. That's a true statement.
What's the difference between fiber optics and regular wire?
Huh?
What's the difference between fiber optics and regular wire?
Fiber optics is faster by a long shot. You can go up to about.
Ethernet cable is using?
Yeah, I mean it's just faster. It's so much faster. And back whenever there was a time when this man told a bunch of people, a bunch of other folks, that he says one day all of the telephone, or most of the telephone signals that, word conversations are going to travel on beams of light. And that's what they were saying.
1800s.
It was Alexander Graham Bell. He's the guy that invented the telephone. And I'll tell you something else that's really interesting about that is, now it's all, this fiber optic stuff is all digital. But let me hit you with this, and I'm just going to tell you this. It'd be cool if I could show you that. You've seen the old 16 millimeter projectors where they have these, and all that. All right, now they got sound. That they actually have sound. All right, so you flip that lens back, you can see that little head that picks up the, the sound and the film goes through. Okay, Mr. Wizard, I don't know if you've ever seen that program on TV. It's cool as all get out. He took a flashlight and he wired that flashlight bulb. He turned on this. He played this record, and the speaker was speaking. Okay, he was playing some tune that you recognized, All right, so then he takes the speaker wires and hooks them up to this flashlight. Unhooks the speaker, turns on the flashlight, and the flashlight, whenever all of this music is playing, you can see the flashlight doing this. You know what I'm saying? It was pulsing like the music. Couldn't hear anything. Okay, from across the room, he was as far away as farther than here to that wall. He pointed that flashlight at that 16 millimeter projector, and that light traveling from that flashlight was picked up by that head in that projector, and it was playing the music out of those speakers on that projector. Now the point I'm trying to make is he was actually
Through the light.
Yeah, just because of the light, the pulses of that light was causing the speaker on that 16 millimeter projector to play that music, and it was from across the room, and the light wasn't very bright. So it wasn't like he was doing it with a laser. You know what I'm saying? It was a dadgum old flashlight like you'd put D-cell batteries in. Now the point I'm trying to make is, if you can do that, good and doggone well, you can send digital signals through through fiber wire and all that.
You can send information through a flashlight.
Yeah, that kind of
I mean, but it
information.
can
Well,
carry-
through beams of light, that's the point. Now, you're going to have issues if it's not line of sight. That's what the fiber optic does, is it bends the light to where you're going, you see what I'm saying? But if you can see it down there on the tiniest level, it's little pulses of light is what it is. And they may
Army used to
be.
use little laser pointers. They point them at the thing and flash them, let them know when they were going.
Yeah. Well, you saw this
They did
thing.
it on Star Wars, man.
You saw this thing right here that I made. When I shine a light in there, that little, it's got a battery in there, and it's got a little, this is a detector, and consider that an emitter. And I showed you this here too, how this thing can actually see that infrared signal. Now your video camera can see it, but you can't see it with your naked eye, but this thing here can see it. And I made this as a tool. I built it when I was working at the Ford place, because some of the remote controls used infrared, like on some of the Jeeps. And so when I got, say my remote don't work, I'd reach in my toolbox and I'd get this thing out and I'd point it at that, and if that was flashing, I'd say, well, we're putting out a signal anyway. And then I'd go look somewhere else for my problem. But the fact is, there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with light.
I heard you could take a key fob and say you have one at home, but you locked your keys up in your vehicle here. You could aim a cell phone at your car and have somebody on the other line do the key fob into the cell phone and unlock the car.
That's possible. I'm not going to say that that's not possible, but I mean, a lot of times you'll be surprised what you can do. There's also a tool that I probably need to get one just to demonstrate that looks vaguely similar to that, but it's made to check these radio fobs, and it's got a bunch of little lights on it. When you point this fob at that little tool, it'll tell you if it's putting out a signal or not. And dealerships have them. I mean, if you go to the dealership mechanics,
I used to have something kind of like that, but I had a little keychain thing. You put on your keys. If you lost your keys, you took it, press the button, and take your keys.
Yeah, beep. That's a cool thing too. But anyway, let's move on here. When checking the engine coolant temperature sensor with a scan tool, about what temperature should be displayed if the connector is removed? Oh, did I move back? I jumped over 5, didn't I? I'm sorry.
5.
I think you jumped a test.
Nope, I jumped the test. Hey, that's tomorrow's test. I was giving you guys a preview. Sorry about that. I got 2 tests laying here, and I do apologize for that. Number 6, each computer is connected to the data bus. It's been there already. Wireless networks require the use of one wire to transmit information.
That's not a wash.
That's not any, there's no wires.
Wireless.
Or a wireless network, there's no wires.
That's not very fast, that's not as fast as Ethernet cable either, because.
Well, wireless networks are twitchy, you know, they are. Multiplex wiring systems use bus data links that connect modules together. That's true. And number 10, the controller area network was developed to supplement the local interconnect network system. That's not right. But one of the things that you got to do with CAN bus stuff, you might notice that the vehicles like that have a throttle cable, I mean, they don't have a throttle cable, like the ones like on that Hyundai out there, on my F-150, have got the, and on a lot of the General Motors, starting in about 2000, they started having, you know, electronic throttle bodies. And they use a CAN bus to talk. If it needs to, if that information needs to get there fast, they're going to run it over a CAN bus. And the vehicle dynamic stuff, like your ABS uses CAN bus, PCM uses CAN bus. The stuff that really doesn't have to work all that fast won't use CAN bus. It will use something else. You know, it'll use the slower networks.
Like dimmer switch and all that?
Stuff like that. And yeah, and all any of the other, anything else, there's all kinds of functions that you got, well, like your audio protocol. You know, like your audio system may be speaking, you know, through a network to, you know, another part of your, like a lot of them have these CD changers in the trunk, and they just got a little network going back there, but it doesn't have to talk that fast. You know what I mean?
It's like a G35, everything's linked together.
Yeah.
You can't take the engine controller out and put it in another car. Like say you do a motor, try to swap the motor out of the G35 into a 240. You can't just take the ECU and wire harness like you could on an older vehicle, because it has to be linked with the body control module.
Right.
That's like that window unit I changed on that Ford Explorer. If you buy a new window controller for it, it has to be programmed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the that same way is those. I was telling him, well, you're talking about that little window. I mean, it looks like all the window switches on that Trailblazer. That was on that Trailblazer, and you got to program that. It's actually a computer. It looks like a set of power window switches. Just go down in the door. But if you buy one for $125 or whatever it costs, and you pop it in there, it just absolutely won't work, and you'll think you misfired. But you have to actually plug in and program that thing to take it. Something that Volkswagen does is Volkswagen, for a long time there, and they may still be doing that to some extent, had the same air conditioner control head for every vehicle. However, when you put the air conditioner control head in the vehicle, it needed to know what kind of vehicle you were putting it in, so it would know how to handle things. If you were putting it in a van, as opposed to a Passat or something like that, the same control head would plug into both of them, but you had to tell it what you were putting it in, using your scan tool stuff and all that. A lot of the times, you know, this air conditioning stuff is fixed so that when you plug in each actuator, there's little jumpers in there. Each actuator is exactly the same, but when you plug it in, there are certain little jumper connections that are made that tells that actuator, okay, you're going to be operating the blend door. It'll have tell another one just like it, okay, you're operating the defrost door and all this kind of stuff. Pretty cool the way some of them things are doing it. Some of the Mercedes have 10 AC actuators under there that all talk on the CAN network. All right, so number controller area network diagnostics is being discussed. Technician A says the first step is to verify the customer's complaint. Well, that's always true. You're going to have to verify the customer's complaint. Technician B says you have to determine which bus network is at fault, and that is, they're both correct. Controller area network diagnostics is being discussed. Technician A says a scan tool is used to access the central gateway module for the bus network. Technician B says if the scan tool can communicate with the central gateway module, then the CAN C circuit is at fault. Now this is some stuff, guys, you're going to need to read this. When I throw you your final exam, I'm not going to be spoon feeding you anything up here. You're going to have to get your book and you're going to have to go page by page and find these answers, okay? And you know.
Will I have to know this, do all this?
You darn sure will.
You will have
yes,
to.
Sir. This is stuff that you will not get away with. I mean, if you're serious about getting into the, you know, the down and dirty on fixing this stuff, you would be amazed how many cars that you're going to see that have network problems, and you better know how to figure them out. There's entire classes that they have at places like KC Vision, these really expensive, you know, training schools for mechanics and all, where they, I mean, if somebody has a network training class, that class will be full to the gills. Every seat will be full, and these guys are taking notes, they're paying attention, and everybody's got a story about network issues that they've had. And so, you know, if you don't understand how these networks work, you know, this is not just, some of the stuff I'm talking about, you know, like that's in the textbooks are not that big of a deal, but this network stuff is super, super important.
Mike was telling me how he had problems with a Nissan Titan with network. Like I was saying about the G35, everything was networked together.
Yep.
And the scan tool would talk to it, and it would say it was fine, but it wasn't talking to the rest of it. It said on the scan tool you could make it do it.
Yep.
You know, but once you unplug the scan tool,
Yep.
it did. It wasn't talking to nothing.
Yep. You'll see little network maps, by the way, that look like they'll have little boxes like this right here. I mean, they may have a lot of boxes on here. Every one of them, you know, your parking aids, your radio, your seat module, your driver door module, your anti-theft system, your PCM, all of that stuff. Every one of these will have its little acronym, and they will have network cable. If it's a twisted pair of 2-wire cable, it'll have your little data link connector there. And every doggone one of these is hooked to that network like that. And so on the Chrysler Starscan that they came out with about the time I left the field, they had a little tool that was about the size of that scope I got out, but it was a touch screen. And you'd plug it into the car you were working on, and it would pull up your the network on that car, and it would have a map like this. And the one that you were concerned about, like somebody said their ABS light was on or something like that, you would tap on ABS and it would bring that particular system up, and then you'd work your way through diagnostic. But it was a touch screen. You just touch whatever module you're wanting to talk to, but it would give you a map of which one was on the car. And and sometimes you'll have buses where there'll be 3 or 4 modules on a 1-wire bus, and 8 or 10 modules on a 2-wire bus, and then you may have a third bus over here. See, so if you're looking at, and basically if the whole network has gone down, what they want you to do to begin with is you see if you can communicate and you disconnect your modules one at a time. You see to see, and there's also a terminating resistance. In other words, whenever they go in here, if you go from one side of the network to the other and you read it's like 60 ohms or whatever, that means that you don't have a cut wire and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's something you'll see in your textbook and everything. But all right, let's go on down here. All the following are facts about controller and area network bus diagnostics except. Now this is a wordy bunch of stuff, and basically I'm just going to tell you that on 13, D is the right one. A normal voltmeter reading on the CAN bus Manus circuit with the ignition off and the bus asleep is 0 volts. I don't know why in the world they put a question with that much verbiage on it. 14, controller area network B diagnostic, bus diagnostics are being discussed. Technician A says some modules do not set specific codes that isolate the type of fault. That's 14. Well, he's right. Technician B says if the fault code indicates CAN B plus and minus circuits are low or high, a total bus failure has occurred, and he's right about that. Technician A says the J1850 protocol, now that is an SAE designation, J1850, is the Class B standard for OBD2. Technician B says J1850 standard allows for 4 different versions based on the baud rate. The baud rate is how fast it's talking, basically, you know, what the frequency of it and everything is. And that's A, basically. A is right on that one. Technician A says ISO 9141-2 is not a network protocol since it can be used only for diagnostic purposes. Okay. Now, Technician B says ISO 9141-2 is a Class B system that has a baud rate of 10.4 kilobits per second. And so what about that? That's C. That is C. Okay, number 17. Technician A says the LIN bus is a UART single master multi-slave low-speed network. Technician B says the local interconnect network was developed to take the place of the CAN bus system. Who is right about that? That's only A. Okay, you got to remember that. Can you say that? If I say, what's a LIN bus? You say it's a UART single master multi-slave low-speed network. Can you remember those words and spit it out at me if I ask you that? Yeah. All right. Number 18. Technician A says the circuitry of the CAN bus usually consists of a pair of twisted wires. Now, I will tell you this. The twisted wires that it consists of have to have a certain number of twists per inch.
Why?
because if they don't, you'll get interference. They twist them so you won't get electrical interference. That's what they do. A lot of times on these, there was robots that you have, you know, they have different connections going to there. Every wire going to these robots, little microprocessors, is twisted around each other. They don't just run them through a sheath, they twist them around each other and let that be the way they go. And they're shielded on the ignition, that wire going for that ignition sensor. It's actually a shielded wire that's got a foil around it, and the foil is grounded, and it's twisted around itself inside the foil. So they want to make sure that you don't have any kind of interference on that. Incidentally, the electrical noise can wash across these wires and cause them to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do, confuse the crap out of the engine controller. I told somebody the other day about this lady that I knew over in Dothan, and she called me right about quitting time one day, and she said, I just crossed the traffic circle, and in my Oldsmobile, a yellow Oldsmobile with a 4-cylinder and throttle body injection on it, she said, my Oldsmobile just quit running about the time I hit the traffic circle. And I coasted into this store over here, and so I said, well, just stay there and I'll be there in a minute. So I went over there and opened the hood, took the breather off, and when she started it up, it was stalled. But after it stalled, the injector would keep squirting after it stalled. And so I took I noticed that I was smelling, when she had it sitting there with the key on, I was smelling that fan motor. And the fan was running, but the fan motor was stinking. And I said, that fan motor is creating electrical noise. So I unplugged the fan motor, and she cranked it up, and it ran just fine. As soon as I plugged the fan motor back in, it died, and it kept squirting.
So the fan motor was doing
the fan motor was causing electrical noise in the engine compartment that was causing the dadgum injector, the PCM, just to fire the injector for no reason. See, it was getting the renegade signals. All right, so I told her, I said, turn off your defrost and your air conditioner and everything, so the AC wouldn't, and I says, now crank it. So she cranked it up. And I says, now turn on your air conditioner. So she turned on her air conditioner, and it killed the engine, and it started going. So I put
How long did it take you to find that out?
About 5 minutes. And what triggered me, to begin with, I knew that the fan motor could cause this electrical noise because I was doing drivability work every day anyway. Secondly, I saw smoke and I smelled a burned up fan motor.
Okay.
That's too much candy for a nickel. So when you smell the burned up fan motor, the first thing you do is you unplug the wires from it and see if the problem goes away. If it does, you know the fan motor is a problem.
You know how old the man is when he says that's too much candy for a nickel.
Well,
You don't look that old.
I used to be able to get a stage plank for a nickel. That was 2 great big pieces of gingerbread over there. All right, but anyway, let's see, Technician A says, wait a minute, number 18, yep. Technician B says digital data to transfer the CAN bus voltage is simultaneously pulled high on the circuit and pull low on one circuit and pull low on the other, and both those guys are right. 19. Technician A says modules on the media-oriented system transport bus use an LED, photodiode, and a MOST transceiver to communicate with the light signal. Technician B says the media-oriented system transport system uses fiber optics to transmit data at an extremely fast rate. Both those guys are right. And number 20, Technician A says wireless networks can connect modules together to transfer information with the use of electromagnetic field. That's not right. Technician B says Bluetooth technology allows several modules from different manufacturers to be connected using standardized radio transmission. Now see, that's interesting there because that's right, but if they claimed that was false,